welcome, and thank you for taking the time. Leadership seems to be a combination of specific skills. Some call it natural abilities, and learned behaviors and attitudes and principles. You could say we learn a lot at our mother's knee. What values did you learn from your family, the family business, that have held you in good stead for today?
I think what I learned in the first place is not to quarrel too much. You can have an argument with a person, but to have a real row, it needs two persons, and I learned very young that I'm not one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one thing. The second thing is what I learned from my parents is that just being nice is not enough. It's maybe better to be clear and frank, and from there on to take it from there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important in leadership too.
Mm-hmm.
The third element, what I learned, but more later in my life,
Mm-hmm.
doing my studies and so on, but after all I was still a kid and a student, is that you can look into things from many different perspectives. So it's better to listen to people who have the different angles and they look to something, and you understand better what the reality is. There is not one truth. It's a bit more complicated in life.
Getting different perspectives from your team around you.
Yeah, that's what you promote.
Yes.
You have to bring if somebody has an opinion, the important thing is not to argue with him of this is the right opinion.
Mm-hmm.
The important thing is to ask that person why he defends that position. And when you hear then why he is defending it, it's more easy to communicate later, because just his conclusion or her conclusion is not enough.
I think also, in companies, to relate that to companies, sometimes we feel that communication in a growing company can decrease. We have emails, we have other ways of communicating. The face-to-face contacts aren't always there as much as they used to be, perhaps.
Yeah, that's part of the communication technology. This was earlier with books and printing material. You get so much that you become confused. And that's a paradox. And the more communication is not always the better communication. So there is a problem. Now we have this wonderful technologies of interneting to each other and so on. I think in balance it's great. But we have to learn in each phase, I think, of history now again. To all the nice new things, there are also downsides. And the way we relate to the downsides might be more decisive than the original step forward in technological terms.
So it's a smart use of the technology.
It's a smart use, and it is to, I think two things are really important, and will continue to be important, is we have to put the man in the center. This is for the whole of the society. And the second is, in our relations, we have to practice the same. That is to see the other person as very relevant and find a system to listen to that person and to mobilize that person, to motivate it, to empower that person. These are elements very related, of course, to leadership. But you can say we have a wonderful era of communication, so this is done by the communication. It's a little bit beyond that.
Mr. Lubbers, you've led in a number of different arenas: the family business, Netherlands Christian Employers Federation, parliamentary leader of the Alliance, PM, chair of Globus, and international president of WWF. Leading all was perhaps quite different, but what was the common thread that runs through all those roles you had as leader?
I think the common thread is that I always thought we can do better, we have to do better in terms of leadership. And that, how do you do that? Then you have to change things. I think the main role for me was always to be an agent of change, which is not going so easily, because we all have the tendency to stick to the way we see things and we do things. So when you come in an organization, people start to explain you, this is the way we do business. So, and you have to pay respect, of course, to this tradition, sometimes a great tradition. At the same time, it's pretty clear. And just continuing as it was done in the past does not suffice. So you have to relate to modernity. What are the new challenges? Maybe we have to do it a bit different. Maybe the way the world is presenting itself to us requires us to change a bit, as an organization. So then you become, in your leadership role, an agent of change. And I think that's the main point. But how do you achieve change? You have to talk and sit down with people and ask more fundamentally why and how, and can it be done different. So this is the red thread, as we say. We see this all the time. It's also putting things in the perspective of time, always in time. We live, as it were, history. History is not something telling about the past, the history, but we make history by the way we live and by our capacity to change. So this is the second element. I think it's always there. And then the challenge is to be proud on the tradition, proud on the institution you are leading, but at the same time available to go for change.
We had a vice president at KLM who once said, we have to question the way we do business, question the way we do business.
Yeah.
And he was continually questioning if there was a better way,
Yeah.
and getting us to question as well. You've been High Commissioner for Refugees since January 3, 2001. You lead 5,000 staff members in 120 countries. How do you do this, and what is your communication strategy?
I don't do it. It's with my people. But it's a real point. Communication is at different levels in such an organization. It's with your small management team and relating to them very nearby, your advisors. Then you have, of course, the managers on different levels, the bureaus here in Geneva for the continents and the representatives in countries. Here my golden rule is there must be a very good reason not to let them do the job themselves. So leadership is their delegation. The third element is that you need to bring in messages of a way forward, a way of thinking. Can we do business better, as it were? And that's stimulating people. But it's not only about management, way of management. It has also to do with revitalizing people. Saying to them, you're great and you're doing a great job. Motivating them. It's maybe that communication is the most important one. How do I mix? How do I balance the praise with the people? And at the same time saying, can we not do better? So these are a few elements of this communication.
Last question for now, Mr. Lubbers. What do you feel are the 5 most critical attributes contributing to the success of a leader?
One is very important, I think, is that you have all this nervosity sometimes in situations. And then the point is, how do you prevent to panic and stay cool enough in the situation? That's one. Because that's always an ongoing business, I think. That's certainly one a challenge. The second challenge is to mix up being rational and emotional. People don't like somebody only to use his brains if he doesn't use his heart. At the same time, they don't like people who are always playing on emotions. So that's the secondary, very important balance.